and my buddies, we were 16 years old. We crossed the border right here. There was no fence right there. That fence did not exist.
In 1970, it was normal to see U.S. citizens from San Diego visiting with Mexican friends from Tijuana on the same beach with no border fence. Okay, they say, yeah, there was this little barbed wire fence at the border at the time, but everybody just went around it. The same fence First Lady Pat Nixon reached across to Mexicans in 1971, dedicating what became known here as Friendship Park. Her last words that day, "I hope there won't be a fence here too much longer." This is the fence and Friendship Park today.
The jail.
Seen from the air, Friendship Park, what human rights observers call one of the most damning symbols of the U.S. government's failed immigration policy. Where deported Mexicans, their faces barely visible behind this iron fence, say they feel like common criminals standing in front of their U.S.-born children and other family members visiting from the U.S. side.
My dream is to go back with my family. I was deported April 2012.
Mexican-American Enrique Morones, one of the park's original founders, says those deported here have less access to visits than many hardened criminals in the state prisons of California.
In California, we have very famous criminals. Charles Manson, probably the most well-known criminal, mass murderer, and he has more access to visitors that come to see him than these people where their only crime is that they were born poor. And they wanted to feed their family, and that's the reason they crossed the border. A person that wants to reach out and see his daughter that he's never hugged. They put mesh up, so as you go up to the wall, it's very difficult to be able to see your loved one. You can't even hold their hand. You might be able to touch their fingertips.
Here on the U.S. side, two visitors must step out of the way of a U.S. Customs vehicle patrolling on a sidewalk, underscoring, some say, the cold shoulder felt at Friendship Park today. The deported on the Tijuana side say they see it that way. Victor Ledesma was deported after failing to prove U.S. citizenship. Today, on Father's Day, his wife and young son, both U.S. citizens, join him on the Tijuana side.
Mi esposa y mi hijo son ciudadanos americanos. Mi hijo sufre de una enfermedad.
We have this message for President Obama, so stop breaking up families.
Medicine for his son Jedwig that Victor Ledesma says he could buy in Tijuana for much less money than in San Diego. He is not allowed to pass through the fence to his family. Nor is his wife allowed to pass him money through the fence, according to rules enforced here by U.S. Border Patrol agents.
Don't pass anything through, over, or under the fence.
What do you mean?
Don't pass anything through, over, or under the fence. Don't hand anything over into Mexico.
Okay, thank you.
San Diego pastor John Fonestil has offered communion every Sunday at Friendship Park, his Mexican counterparts the same on the Tijuana side, for the last 20 years.
The body of Christ.
The blood of Christ.
He credits Mexican-American photographer Maria Teresa Fernandez for documenting the history of Friendship Park. The wall here started going up in 1994 as part of the Clinton administration's Operation Gatekeeper to curb the flow of illegal immigration into the United States.
And the idea, that we're protecting ourselves from what? From the people who want to come and, wash our dishes? Is that who we need protecting from? From the people who come and clean our, houses and cook our food and care for our children? Is that who we're protecting ourselves from?
Up until 2009, the wall did allow for separated families to at least embrace.
Here, for instance, it is Rafael. He lives in LA, and he used to come to the fence every 2 weeks to give them money and presents to the 5 daughters that he has. It was in 2007.
So in 2009, they started to build the second wall, and at that point, the fence on the beach became inaccessible.
Visits today are now restricted by the U.S. Border Patrol to Saturdays and Sundays only from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
And she went to visit her sister, and the whole 2 hours that they were there, they were holding their
little fingers. Yeah.
So it's laughs of joy and tears of sadness. And
it is a powerful experience to visit through this fence, because it forces people to confront the reality of separation. It forces people to confront the reality of our, messed up politics.
A reality, says photographer Maria Teresa Fernandez, represented by these crosses lining one section of border fence nearby. Crosses that represent the estimated 10,000 immigrants who've died trying to cross the border by going around the fence out in the desert. A reality in which these two girls who live on the border can only dream of making it to the U.S., while some who've tried but failed are now stuck living here in this concrete bed of the Tijuana River, an entire colony of the lost and hopeless now living in this camp amidst raw sewage flowing through here. A reality in just half a mile up the fence line from Friendship Park, people attempting to cross into the U.S. live in holes in the earth until the time is right to cross. This crude tent occupied presently by Mexican men, some call them coyotes, waiting to smuggle undocumented immigrants around this fence past border agents perched on border hilltops waiting for them. A reality in which billions of dollars are spent on a wall to stop illegal immigrants. And yet there are open gaps in the wall like this one that human smugglers hope to exploit when border agents leave during their shift change. A cat and mouse game that's gone on for years. It's always interesting when the rare American politician shows up at Friendship Park. Last year, San Diego's former mayor Bob Filner, a Democrat popular among Hispanics, was treated to a hero's welcome here when he convinced Border Patrol agents to open the gate here at the fence to reunite a Mexican-American father with his child on the Tijuana side of the fence. Filner promising the crowd this wall will come down.
We're going to get rid of the wall.
But it was Filner who went down shortly after this, resigning as mayor with a felony conviction involving the sexual harassment of women. San Diego's new mayor, Kevin Faulconer, a moderate Republican, chose to keep his distance from the fence during a recent visit to Friendship Park, saying what goes on here is a federal matter. Pastor John Fonestal witnessed the mayor's visit that day and says he was surprised the mayor made no attempt to speak to people at the fence.
The San Diego mayor came to Friendship Park just a month ago, and he stood in front of the TV cameras who knew that he was coming to Friendship Park, and he was interviewed by them, but he wouldn't even approach. He didn't want to be caught in a picture, at the border itself. He wanted to give a very vague and, nebulous blessing of this public event, but he didn't want to get intimate.
A similar assessment comes from the man who invited the mayor to Friendship Park, one of its founders, Enrique Morones.
Next year, I'm going to say, if you're going to go there, you got to go right up to the wall.
Mayor Faulconer addressed his Friendship Park visit with CCTV on one condition made by his staff, that he not discuss the border fence itself, again because it's a federal issue.
But it is my understanding that you were there recently for a Children's Day. Can you at least talk about that, and what your impressions were of the day in general?
Yeah, I was down at Friendship Park for Children's Day. It's important as we were celebrating, particularly a bigger holiday in Mexico and in Tijuana, celebrating how important children are. When we were down there for the ceremonies, it's the opportunity to celebrate children. And in fact, we saw a father that hadn't seen his daughter in quite some time, a number of years. Heartwarming. We're working as much as we can to absolutely ensure that we strengthen our very close ties and close relationships with Tijuana and with Mexico. The first week that I was sworn into office, I was in Tijuana with Mayor Astizaran, reinforcing our relationship, which is strong between our two cities.
Mayor Faulconer says one of his main priorities is to encourage U.S. border officials to speed up the long wait times Mexican-American families visiting on the Tijuana side of the fence must endure when crossing back into the United States.
The idea is to get those border wait times, which can be now as long as 2, 3, sometimes 4 hours, to get those down to 30 minutes or less.
Though many visitors here on the U.S. side at Friendship Park say they themselves cannot go to Mexico, as they presently await lengthy legalization processes here in the United States. Like this young man talking through the fence to his family on the Tijuana side.
My name is Julian, and we have my dad over here on this side, my sister, and her husband over here on this side.
Is this sort of a happy Father's Day, or?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Even though there's a fence between you?
We've been here a few times already before, so yeah.
Why are you here and why are they there?
Well, I came over here as a kid when I was about 4 years old, and I've been here ever since.
And your family?
Well, they just live over there on that side. I currently can't visit them over there, not just yet. Eventually, I'll be able to.
And why can't you visit them?
I got a permit to be here in the States, but can't go over there just yet. Eventually, I'll be able to. I'm working on that, but it's probably going to be about a few years before that happens.
A few years more. That's what Julian came to tell his kid sister today, who's grown up idolizing her brother from inches away, but hasn't hugged in a decade.
My name is Hector Barajas Varela. I'm a deported U.S. veteran.
And there's the story of deported U.S. military veterans like Hector Barajas, their names painted on the Tijuana side of the Friendship Park fence. Back in the day, they were young Mexican men promised U.S. citizenship in exchange for serving in the U.S. military. Many honorably discharged, suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. After completing his military service, Hector Barajas fired his weapon at home one night and was deported shortly afterward.
I have an 8-year-old daughter. I want to be home with her. A lot of us, we have kids and families.
And do you want to say something to them now as a message if they see this?
Nah, I just miss you guys and I love you guys. And
it's time to go. It's time to go.
Okay, take care of yourself.
Oh, I gotta go. We have to go.
What goes on here doesn't often sit well with American tourists visiting this end of the U.S.-Mexico border for the first time. One such tourist, off-duty U.S. Marine Corporal Donald Pittman.
I feel like we're kind of snotty sometimes, saying that we're so much better than other people that we have to put a fence up just to keep other people out.
Not long ago, in defiance of the wall and how Mexicans are being treated here, a short time-lapse film was made here on the Mexican side of Friendship Park by Mexican-American artist Ana Teresa Fernandez, who announced she was erasing the wall, painting the wall away with the color sky blue. Others opposing the wall being here have participated in binational cultural events along the fence at Friendship Park, from simultaneous yoga meetups on both sides, to volleyball games using the fence as a net, to flying kites across it, to planting a binational garden here on both sides. Events organized by an NGO found on Facebook known as Border Encuentro, founded 10 years ago by San Diego resident and college Spanish teacher Dan Watman, who I met on this day through the fence because he now chooses to live on the Tijuana side.
Our idea is for people to make friends across barriers. So yeah, this was kind of the ideal place to do it because although it started out as kind of making friends across cultural barriers, this barrier represents a lot of barriers in our society.
At Friendship Park recently, members of the Baja California Symphony on the Tijuana side of the fence performed with members of the San Diego Symphony on the U.S. side. An unprecedented binational border concert. The event, the longtime dream of Friendship Park founder Enrique Morones. The message here today, he says, music has no borders. The dream here among many visitors here today that this border wall will one day come down. And with growing opposition to the wall, particularly among America's increasingly influential Hispanic voters, many here believe the wall may indeed just come down one day.
You believe this will come down one day?
I don't believe. I know it will come down. This wall will come down. I wish we could shake hands.
Our thanks to Mike Kirsch for that report. A couple of weeks ago, more than 100 professionals from different U.S. cities crossed the border. They took part in the first National American Theater Conference held in Tijuana. Attendees were able to enjoy an adaptation of Antigone, written by Griselda Gambaro, about the mothers of Plaza de Mayo in Argentina. The play was held on the beach at Friendship Park, right where the U.S. and Mexico borders meet.
Coming up.
A post-World Cup interview with the president of Brazil.
The Brazilian dream is a dream of prosperity. It is a dream, above all, that parents have, believing that the future of their children should be better than their own.
America's Now.